I was in school to get an MDiv, thinking that that was exactly what I was going to do. But it wasn't simply the expectation of being a pastor. It was also set against the idea of doing something creatively or something mundane or something physical, like workaday kind of stuff. To be a pastor, at least in the context that I grew up in and sort of the expectation of my family, was something very distinct and better than anything else. So for me to wrestle through, in the subsequent years, for me to wrestle through what it means to be a cook or a chef or to own a business wasn't simply to deal with that question at hand. It was also to deal with all these kind of like subterranean assumptions about, beneath the surface assumptions about what it means to be a Christian, particularly a Christian in my family with the expectations of what I was supposed to do. So I was battling several different layers of, ideas about things. So when I was at Covenant, when I started doing the underground thing, I did not think of it as, again, like a calling or a work to be done. It was just something I was doing for fun. And I certainly didn't think I was going to make a business out of it. But what happened was progressively, I found myself really within the first couple months of doing it, having this profound level of satisfaction. It was just so gratifying in ways that work for me had never been. It was more gratifying to me than anything at Covenant really had ever been. And I started to ask myself questions about why that was the case. Like what was significant about that? Why did I feel this way and I had never felt this way before? So fast forward really to my graduation, I had one real interview. It was with a church up in Queens, New York, and it fell through. And the only thing I had at that point was just what I was doing with the underground. So I thought, this has been so gratifying. I'll just keep doing it, and we'll see where it goes. And so the theology component, really, I would love to say I started off with it, but I didn't. It was something that really developed over time. I sometimes wonder if I explored the theology as a way of justifying my career choice, but I maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Ultimately, I think what I have come to believe about food and theology and about how God uses creation to bless his people and to love his people and to love not just his people but all people isn't merely something that I created just to feel good about what I was doing, but it's actually true. And so it's been really freeing in that respect. But what really propelled me in the early years when I first started was I wanted to provide something that was a counter to what else was out there. I wanted the people who were eating the food to know who was cooking the food. I thought that connection was important. I wanted to have a set menu, not only because it was practically more feasible than having a menu that people would order from, because that wouldn't really work in an underground context, but also because I think purposefully preparing something and giving it to people was about as close to home cooking and providing, that sort of basic level of hospitality as you would find out there. And I think it was just, different. And I wanted to do that. To remove it from I'm an individual diner going to a place, I'm going to dictate my own experience, but rather coming to a place and having, somebody caring for you in much the same way that your mom or your grandmother or whoever, or your father, family member, friend at a dinner party, you would be cared for like that. And I thought that was just really distinctive. And then I wanted to create a different culture as well within the restaurant, so the way that I treated the cooks and the way that the cooks in the back of the house treated the front of the house, all that kind of stuff was really important. That ultimately was about relationships, people working together, putting out a product. We're all in this together, kind of a family atmosphere. That has always been a part of it, but as I continued to do it, a lot of the theology started to fill in over the last 2 or 3 years. I'm trying to think. There's a book called For the Life of the World by, I think his name is Alexander Schmemann or something like that. That was really informing to me. And the other book that had a huge impact on me was The Supper of the Lamb by Robert Farrar Capon. And both of those books talk a lot about that unfortunate dichotomy between spirituality and reality, or the tangible and the spiritual, and this sort of like Gnostic tendency that, despite the fact that it's been a heresy for 1800 years, we still want to live that way, and really how that's affected the church in pretty profound ways. And so my doing what I'm doing is a really active battling against that and joining those two things, and that is valuable and important. And then that started to get back to this insecurity, this fundamental insecurity that I had as a child in my family, as a person wrestling with, why are you not going into ministry? Why are you doing this food thing? That's not good enough. Well, actually it is good enough, because food is part of this much bigger picture, is part of the world that God created for us. There's not this kind of split between these two things where one gets valued more than the other. And merging them together and seeing them merge together practically, as well as just internally, became this really powerful thing for me. And I think the more that I have begun to wrestle with it, the better job I think I've done in communicating that to other people, whether it's explicitly, like in a moment like now, or either implicitly as well, for people that come to our restaurant, people that I feed. That, I think what I have come to think about the world, I hope really is infused in how we feed people, and how we run the business. And certainly not perfectly by any means, but that is a spirit that is just, I can't pull out and separate from what we do, from what I do.